Hello, everyone. Welcome to another 2023 FallDocs screening. My name is Armando Zamudio, and I'm the Public Programs and Events Coordinator here at IDA. For our blind and low vision attendees, I'm going to describe myself. I am a light-skinned Mexican-American. I'm wearing a white t-shirt, a black jacket. I have glasses on, I have messy hair, and I am sitting under a bookshelf. Thank you to our media sponsors, KCRW and Variety, for sponsoring our 2023 FallDocs. This evening, we'll have a conversation between Ford Foundation's Program Officer, John Cesri Goff, Director Seth Hernandez, and film protagonist Pedro, whose film Unseen premiered at Hot Docs 2023. To see more amazing films like this, please visit www.documentary.org/FallDocs. Now, before we get started, I'd like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. We recognize the Gabrielino Tongva as the past, present, and future caretakers of the land, water, and cultural resources in the unceded territory of Los Angeles. And with that, I will pass it on to John. Thank you.
Hi, it's so wonderful to be here to moderate this conversation with filmmaker, director Seth Hernandez and participant, star of his film, and activist, inspiring human Pedro. I'm John Cesri Goff. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a program officer at the Ford Foundation, where I work with Just Films portfolio, and I'm also an artist and a filmmaker. And for our blind and low vision attendees, I'm going to provide a brief description of myself. I'm a brown-skinned African-American, somewhere between chestnut and cinnamon brown, wearing glasses, round silver frame glasses. I have a slightly overgrown goatee with speckles of gray. I'm wearing a blue overcoat with a white shirt, and I'm seated in front of a wooden bookshelf against a white wall. And I'd like to toss it over to Seth to introduce themselves.
John, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you. My name is Seth Hernandez. I use they, them pronouns. She, her, he, him are also okay. I'm the director, producer of Unseen, and also a big fan of John. And I am a male presenting person with olive complexion, round face, black beard, black hair, black rimmed glasses, white shirt, and behind me is art on my walls. I'll pass it on to Pedro.
Thank you so much, John, for having us here today. My name is Pedro, pronouns he, him, they, them. Visual description. I'm a light-skinned Latino. I'm bald. I have an oval face, and I'm currently wearing jeans and a gray long sleeve shirt. And behind me is a white wall.
So I have a lot of questions for both of you. And in the interest of time, hopefully we'll make it through all of them, but I'm going to alternate between the two of you. So my first question is for Seth, and I think it literally provides the context for our conversation today. How did you, or when did you realize that you were going to tackle so many complex intersectional issues in this film, in Unseen, and what challenges did you face in weaving them together in this cohesive narrative?
Yes, thank you so much, John, for that powerful question. I think with Unseen, from the get-go, when Pedro and I first started filming, I'll speak for myself, I was only thinking of making a film about Pedro, but kind of confining his story through the lens of his experiences being a person with disability, in his case, being a blind individual who also happens to be an immigrant. But that was 7 years ago. In the course of making the film, I think so much has evolved around the way I understand life and the way I understand the world. And kudos also to our editor, who noticed so many parallels between Pedro's journey and my own journey as a human being, that he really advocated for a way for us to find how I can include my journey also in the film to parallel Pedro's. So I think it was being humble, to be honest, to the process of filmmaking, where we were able to really extrapolate from the scenes the actual core themes of the film, and from there build a story that sure is about Pedro, but it's also about these intersectional experiences that go beyond just his story, And I think, for folks that watch the film, you'll notice that the film has a very unorthodox visual style, I guess. For the most part, it's very blurry, and the desire for that is really to invite viewers to watch a film by listening, as opposed to leaning into visual cues to understand what's happening in the film. Inevitably or incidentally, that visual style lent itself also to the themes of the film, particularly this idea of vulnerability, because I think in the film, we talk a lot about how can we show our most authentic selves to each other? How can we let our guard down and be more vulnerable with each other? And that experience of guarding ourselves when we're hurt, and pretty much having a calloused heart, I guess, for lack of better words, that's something that all human beings experience, and through our film, it just so happens that we're presenting that human experience through the vantage point of both Pedro and myself. And we are able to uplift the perspectives of people with disabilities, undocumented folks, and queer, trans, non-binary filmmakers along the way also.
I really appreciated the aesthetics of the film. It's one of the things that struck me from early iterations of the project. I'm a low vision individual myself. I've worn glasses or contacts all of my life. And I think for me, when I first started to feel liberated were the moments in which, of course, not driving, but when I would venture out into the world without my glasses and have to face things with my natural sight, which is incredibly nearsighted. So things that would concern me in the distance with my glasses that I would want to know the detail of got lost, and I really got to engage with the world sort of from my unique vantage point, which we all sort of have. And it's very rare to see those aesthetics translated cinematically. So want to acknowledge and honor and celebrate that aspect of this project as well. And then my first question for Pedro, I think, Unseen plays a vital role in affirming the humanity of marginalized communities, as Seth mentioned earlier. Pedro, for you, how did being part of this project impact your sense of identity? And do you feel any burden of representation for the communities you represent?
Thank you so much for your question. That's a It's a powerful question. I don't know, to be honest, because first of all, the least that I want to be is to be a representative of such a big communities, because I can only humbly offer my personal experience, and I believe that the human existence of all individuals are so unique that it will be the service for myself and for others to perceive my reality, my experience as their experiences of a whole community. But to me, when it comes to this project, what it allows me to do is to put together all my identities, and in a way being at peace with all my identities. As for a long time, I had to fragment it. I had to fragment myself in order to fit in different settings so I could survive. So now being able to piece all those parts of myself together and being okay with it has been a beautiful healing process for myself. And I'm very thankful for being part of this project, because without it, probably it wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for that reflection. Seth, I keep talking about how Unseen is birthed from many struggles of various communities and movements, including disability rights, immigration, as you mentioned, queer, trans, and non-binary communities, LGBTQ plus communities, and more. Can you share some insights on sort of the pre-production and preparation and research that went into the film to represent sort of these issues accurately?
Ooh, that's such a powerful question. John, you're just hitting it with all the really like amazing questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Um, you know, when I was applying for grants for the film, I wanted to do my best to ensure that I am, educated about the issue, because while I myself am undocumented, I'm queer, non-binary Filipino, I feel like it is quite a leap for me to say that I'm an expert in the movement for disability justice, which I'm not. And so I got all these books about the intersectionality of immigration and disability, and how disability actually was a very big component of how people would be rejected from coming into the US, at the turn of the 20th century, So like I did all that, for the research. But what I came to realize is sometimes, I don't know if other filmmakers could relate to this. What I came to realize eventually is that I think I was trying too hard to show a certain level of pedigree, because ultimately, what I think the best strategy for me to make the best film was to listen to what Pedro, like shares with me about his journeys. Because at the end of the day, I told Pedro, actually from the beginning, I've always told Pedro, my goal is to make a film that when you watch it, well, first of all, my goal is for you to be able to watch the film and not just watch it because it's accessible, also enjoy it. And when you finish enjoying the film, I hope that you'd be able to say, wow, you made a film about me, There's no book about Pedro himself. He hasn't written an autobiography yet, But so if I were just to confine my research to historical books, I would pretty much just have confined Pedro's life in the political context surrounding him. You know what I mean? So I think I really needed to humble myself and surrender to the process, of a friendship also, because I wanted to make sure that I'm doing right by Pedro, and I think ultimately the best way to shape the narrative of the film is to really understand, that Pedro is more than just the circumstances of his life, and how I also found pieces of myself in the journey that he has allowed me to capture, in film with him.
Totally. I mean, making a film is incredibly hard, but Pedro, I think being in one is even harder. And so I commend you for your willingness to go on this journey, and this journey that will continue, long after the initial round of distribution and release for this film is done. Like I like to think films live forever, until someone can no longer encounter it, or discover it, even when it's a forgotten film. But so, Pedro, have there been any personal transformations, or what are the personal transformations or societal changes that you hope would result from your participation in the film, especially concerning access to critical services for disabled and undocumented individuals?
I love your questions, John. They're so they're so profound. So thank you so much. And every single time that I someone asks me this question, it's usually a slightly different version of my answer. And I don't know. I guess that it all depends in the stage in my life that I am. So if I'm going from something very small, I would like to celebrate or hope to celebrate the um, the complexity of the human experience, and also the importance of vulnerability, and just to let yourself your guard down for a few minutes, because this and this world can be quite savage at times. And I feel that sometimes, in order to survive, well, let me rephrase it, in order for me to survive, I need to put a big armor on and pretend that nothing is happening within me. But those times when I allow myself to put that guard down and be myself and be vulnerable, that's when I'm able to heal from all the adversities. I guess that and yeah, if I go for something bigger, I would like to pose the idea that social environments matter. And I consider myself to be a regular Joe, nothing too special about me. But what allowed me to do something with my life and continue to do something with my life is the people who surrounded me, my community, the love and support and encouragement that I got from it. So I wonder, and because I believe me, I believe that there are other people with disabilities and other immigrant, undocumented immigrants that might have better skills than me or wiser than me or whatever. But my social environment was the one who allowed me to flourish. So I wonder instead of punishing others, if we could switch the approach to something more, instead of punitive, to something more related to rehabilitation, to something more related about a solution approach, a strength approach, focusing on the strengths of the individuals instead of punishing them for their differences. So I guess that's what I have so far.
Wow, that's a lot. That's that truth, and of having to not only wear that armor, but having to go through the labor of removing it to return to self is like so much extra labor that I don't think people consider when you just talk about basic survival, because no human, maybe armadillos are born with armor, but no humans,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, are born with that exoskeleton to protect us. Yeah. And so Seth, in the context of access, um and for those listening, I have a lot of bias from my position at Ford, where we have been proud supporters of this project, both through production and now in the impact phase. So I may be using some insider baseball language in here, but in the context of access, can you discuss the strategies employed in Unseen to make the film more inclusive and accessible for audiences? And how do you hope this approach will influence the wider film industry?
Yeah, to your question about impact earlier, John, I think so often in film, we think about, and it's related to your current question. I think so often in film, when we think about impact, what we mean is legislation or policy change or like some type of like big societal change, I think for Unseen, um, that is indeed part of our aspiration. We have an impact campaign, and the tagline is access, affirm, transform. The societal transformation, that's like the macro scale that we're hoping for impact. But what we've come to realize also is along the way, what's most tangible actually is the access part, like you're mentioning. And when a film is accessible, the communities that are often overlooked as audiences, primary audiences for film, find the affirmation in somebody else's story. What I mean by that, for example, a lot of films about undocumented people have been created, but often they're for the gaze of citizens to feel bad for us, and pity us, and vote for a pro-immigrant policy legislator, or films about blind individuals, as Pedro has told me, they're often not even accessible for blind individuals. So that tells me that maybe these films about blind individuals are catered to sighted audiences. So how can we reach our audiences that we really want to uplift in the film? Of course, we want as broad an audience as possible, but we definitely don't want to overlook audiences that are at the heart of our story. And to make the film accessible, we were very intentional in finding ways to work with accessibility producers. In fact, we created the title credit accessibility producer because when I was Googling, what do you call accessibility supporters for your film? They're usually just consultants. But our accessibility producers, Cheryl Green and Thomas Reed, they were more than just consultants. They held our hands, through the process of making our film accessible. How can we make sure that while the film is very audio oriented because of its visual style, that it's also accessible for deaf and hard of hearing audiences? What are ways that we can do that? That is why in the film, you will notice in any film festival that it has open captions, and now we're also considering what are ways to also include ASL interpretation. When Pedro and I first started filming, and I would share cuts with him because we didn't have money for AD, I would pretty much Zoom with him and I would live AD impromptu, for him, what's happening on screen. So I feel like if accessibility is at the heart of our process, just as much as shooting the film or recording sound is something that I would have figured out how to do without money, being accessible is something that I also am committed to do, because that commitment to the friendship with Pedro, I think, is really ultimately what drove accessibility for the film.
That's really crucial and important, and I hope more production teams are able to take a note from what you have learned in this process. And Pedro, I think my last question, unless we have more time, I have one more for you, but I want to ask this question because the entire production of Unseen highlights the importance of individuals from various backgrounds, sometimes intersecting, sometimes not, coming together to address common issues. Can you reflect on your role, even outside of this film, in building broader coalitions, and anything that you might be able to share with our audience today, at this time where I think people are driven more by our differences than, you know, our common struggles or even our common joys. Is there any reflections or anything you can offer just around building broader coalitions?
Wow. um, one of the things that continues to puzzle me during this process of going to festivals is that after the Q&As, people have approached us about the film, and people from different walks of lives have mentioned to us that they feel that even though they do not share our identities, they feel connected and related to the film. And for the longest time, I was wondering why. And it was not until the person that I admire the most and the person who I look up to, which is my mom. I was sharing with her this situation that we were constantly experiencing, and she mentioned something very profound to me, that sometimes people are able to relate more to the feelings than the experiences. I might not know what you're going through or experience what you have experienced, but I might know how it feels, what you're feeling. And when we're able to put all the differences aside and focusing on the core of our human existence, which are feelings, I believe that we might have a shot on finding more common ground between humans. Well, at least that's what my mom tried to explain to me. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, no, I feel that, and I could only hope so that we grow into a more sensing and feeling society. And my last formal question for you, Seth, um, Unseen aims to affirm the worthiness of marginalized communities. How do you feel that the film facilitated intersectional solidarity between immigration and disability justice movements? And how do you see this affirmation impacting these communities?
I love that. Thank you, John. Maybe I'll say this as part of my transformation also in terms of perspective around filmmaking. And I think what Pedro just said right now, everything that he just said, I think also relates to this question. Because when I first started filming with Pedro, I recognized I'm a non-disabled person. You know, both he and I are undocumented, but aside from that, not much, is similar to our. Well, actually, Pedro disagrees with this. So our identities, at least, we don't have a lot in common in terms of like identity-wise, maybe aside from the immigrant experience. But I'm saying this because before I would perceive myself as a non-disabled person who has more privilege in life. So maybe I can come and quote unquote help maybe by uplifting Pedro's journey in life. And that's just such a saviorist mentality, like, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings living in this system that's causing us to be pitted against each other, and what I came to really embody or come aspire to embody more, this Aboriginal organizer, Lila Watson, she says, if you came here to save me, you're wasting your time. But if you came here because you understand that your liberation is tied to mine, then let us work together. I think that's pretty much what we hope, in addition to the interpersonal human feelings impact of the film, you know it would just be a cherry on top, if folks understand that um you know, we don't need to be like trying to save each other in this oppression Olympics kind of vantage point, you know, like if we understand that when there's injustice somewhere, I will eventually experience injustice also, you know, to quote Martin Luther King Jr., you know, how can I fight, you know, like, you know, I have stake in this also, you know. So I think that's like a broader approach to your question, you know, that including the disability and immigrant rights movement and solidarity within these spaces. I also hope that, you know, at least for me, I hope that the film can really build bridges for folks by tapping into the very human emotions that Pedro just described in his last response.
Absolutely. And I'll throw one more quote on the pile. This one's from James Baldwin from The Fire Next Time. And it's something along the lines of, I believe the reason that people cling to their hates so much is that once the hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with their pain. And so
Oh, y'all heard us gasp. Y'all heard us gasp.
Yeah, I think we have you know, not just a nation, but a world that is hiding their pain behind a lot of hate and a lot of projection onto others that, you know, that has nothing to do with the other, you know, but everything to do with the pain that the one doing the projection is holding. So thank you both for your time this afternoon, and congratulations on all the success of Unseen, and many more celebrations to come in the life of the film, and many people to be inspired and an entire industry to be transformed. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, John. Truly a blessing to be here with you and Pedro. So grateful.
Thank you so much, John, for this opportunity.